The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I rise to support this legislation, the South Shore Housing Reform, Housing Restructuring and Tenancy Matters Amendment Bill. And I do so because it is part of a suite of initiatives that the National Party, the National-led government, are working on and have actually begun work on the ground with to deal with housing issues right across New Zealand. First of all, of course, people will be aware of the changes we've made to the Building Act to ensure that builders are up to the par and able to deliver a better housing with their qualifications, and also changes to the structural rules around the construction of those houses. The Resource Management Act, changes to consenting to streamline that consenting process so that developments can get underway sooner. We've also looked at, as part of the suite of options, land supply, making sure that not only is there new greenfields, new land for housing around metropolitan areas and some of our cities across New Zealand, but also housing where housing is already built on large sections, that those people can easily subdivide their quarter-acre and half-acre sections to provide more housing within city limits. Interestingly, the Green Party hate the expansion of housing out to green sort of rural areas, and they push hard for densification, but the minute you try and do it, even in state housing, where you bowl an old, cold, mouldy state house in a half-acre section in order to create 3 sections and 3 houses, the Green Party are right there opposing it alongside Honi Hauora. So that's pretty interesting. Building materials, Nick Smith's announced his concerns and his program to address the issue of costly building materials in New Zealand, and of course we've got the upgrade of state housing, those state houses that weren't insulated through the decades that Labor was in government. Those old, cold, mouldy houses are now being insulated, and this forms, today we talk about this proposition, which forms another initiative to address the issues in housing and the social housing sector. There are some things that Labor didn't do. You'll recall Labor never dealt with gangs in state houses. Remember the methamphetamine producing gangs? Remember the gangs that would grab the pail from the white picket fence of their state house and beat up the neighbours next door? The Labor Party ignored the gangs in state houses. You'll remember the Labor Party ignored all those state house tenants that were subletting state houses. Those shonky schemes that they never jumped on top of. You'll remember the Labor Party never insulated state houses, and I believe Nick Smith is going to see the last state house that can be insulated in New Zealand this year, and I congratulate him for it. And you'll recall the Labor Party supported the idea, and they still support the idea, of the state house for life. You can get a state house, 4-bedroom, because you've got 3 children. You can live in it for 20 years. They can all leave home. You can sit in that state house by yourself at 55 years of age, in a job, 3 empty bedrooms, a half-acre section, and not be required to make way for a family desperate for housing. How crazy is that? How crazy is that? The Labor Party ignore the fact you're earning $100,000 a year, you can stay in your state house. They ignore the fact that there's 3 empty bedrooms, you can stay in your state house. They ignore the fact that you're on a half-acre section, you can stay in your state house. And they even ignore the fact that you might want to shift into a smaller state house, and they still won't shift you. Mr Speaker, I support this legislation. I support what Nick Smith's done here. It's all common sense to those people out there who believe you shouldn't have gangs cooking methamphetamine in state houses. You shouldn't have someone in a state house for 50 years if they're earning $100,000, and you need to support the community housing sector. Congratulations to Nick Smith.
Mr Speaker.
I call Dennis.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. This bill is one of